Hello friends, welcome back. This is going to be a little wrap up of my reading so far. Um, I set myself a goal of reading a certain number of novels from the Palestinian speculative fiction reading list that I put together. So this is my mini challenge. And I've already read one novel, which is Thunderbird by Sonia. It's not actually out yet. I got an advance copy to review, so I don't want to be spoiling the review beforehand by just gushing about it or criticizing it. But I will say that my experience with it was very uneven, and I think that I struggled a lot with the target audience of the novel. I haven't read a lot of junior fiction or YA or even middle grade, so I'm not even that familiar with the categories of that. More so, I wasn't really familiar with the conventions of those categories, and so I wasn't sure like if what was coming, what was um, apparent to me about the novel was something that was a stylistic choice, or if it was a convention of that category. After I finished Thunderbird, which is a short novel, I started to read some of Short Trips by Jamil Nasser. And these stories that I read so far are science fiction, and I enjoyed them a lot more than I thought I would. So far, I think I would rate it pretty highly. I haven't really gotten too deep into it though, so you don't know what's going to happen around the corner. But one of these stories is very interesting about this disease which people fear, and they oppress and marginalize people who are infected. So they want to quarantine them or contain them. However, they leave them unsupported in society. So they end up just fending for themselves. Um, they basically they age in reverse, but they don't become children. They just become this sort of idealized version of themselves that they never actually were. So you have 70-year-olds that are now looking apparently 16, and their mental faculties have been affected as well. So they have difficulty with communicating with the people who are not infected. Um, but what ends up happening is that they are transcending human existence. And so in this way, people will actually try to get infected. So you see what I mean? It's quite complex setup. I've only been dipping into Short Trips now and then. I've been reading Guardian of the Gold Breathers every night. This is a story which is inspired by Irish folklore. And it really has a classic C.S. Lewis feel to it. I mean, even from the description, you have him, this young boy, going to this country estate with his new stepfather and his mother, and discovering something magical. You know, it's very much like Lion and the Witch in the Wardrobe vibes. My only criticism so far has been, again, I think it might be an audience issue, is suspension of disbelief is tested just a little bit at one particular point in the story. Also, the stepfather is a little transparently evil. which is something that also came up in Thunderbird with a particular character. So I don't know if this is just the conventions of the category, where you have sort of like an inheritance from folklore where there's evil stepsisters and stepmothers and so on. But the story so far has been very engaging. It's had a very clear through line. So I like the character of Liam, who's the main character, and he's a pacifist, at least at this point, which is interesting because you don't usually tend to find a pacifist character in this type of story where there's supernatural monsters and he refuses to fight them, even though he's telling himself like if I'm fighting in self-defense, it's not murder or it's not wrong to defend myself. But his will to not harm another living thing, it outweighs that. Also, in terms of my writing, which is the writing and reading vlog, I keep submitting stories and they keep bouncing back. This year has not been good when it comes to my short stories. And so I finally got this one story in particular, which has been rejected, I think, 5 times already. I got a revise and resubmit, which I've never had before, but I'm really excited for this. I want to really dig into what the editor has to say about improving, especially they said the second half of the story. So this is interesting for me because when I was drafting this story, I actually was taking two ideas and combining them, very much like two halves. So it could be that my transitions are not really that great, and I might have to separate them again and just treat the first half as its own story. Um, they were both inspired by this idea of Palestinian Gothic fiction. After I went to a FIA-Con panel about, I watched the panel about non-Western Gothics. And I thought, wow, like Palestinian Gothic would be something interesting to try. So it's my first attempt at horror. So I'm very eager to hear what the editors have to say. Um, so I was definitely like, yes, I'm very eager to get into the editing of this story. They were very kind and said, like, we understand that this is your story, and if you don't agree to um, any revisions of it, then that's fine. You can place it somewhere else. But if you want to place it with us, then we have some changes that we would like you to make to the second half. And when I've told people who aren't writers about this, they've been like, I would never let anybody touch my story. And like, I'm absolutely okay with it. Um, I think that that's something I have seen writers who are more protective, but that couldn't be me. I have the sense that the story isn't complete until an editor has really gone in and engaged with it. I suppose I should also mention that I have not touched Bookio since my last update. I do still have that chunk in my clipboard, but I haven't found the time to dig in and revise my Bookio is my novella. If you're just joining us here, I don't have a title for it yet, so I'm calling it Bookio. And so Bookio is on ice right now. And so the other news is that my union, the Writers Union of Canada, released a report on diversity in writers of in Canadian literature for the last for 2020 to 2021. And what they found was not great. um, I'll link to the report in the description. So that's all for today, friends. I'll see you next time. Bye.